Deep within the pine forests of Maryland sits a fortress of silence known as Fort Meade. This is the heart of the National Security Agency, the NSA, the most secretive intelligence organization on the planet. In the mid-1960s, as the Cold War reached a fever pitch, the NSA was a world of buzzing supercomputers, elite cryptographers, and a level of security that felt impenetrable. But the greatest threat to this fortress wasn't a Soviet satellite or a high-level defector. It was a 19-year-old soldier with a low clearance, a mounting pile of debt, and a job that everyone else found too boring to notice. His name was Robert. Robert was the definition of ordinary. He was a young clerk, a cog in the massive bureaucratic machine, responsible for the most mundane tasks imaginable. He handled the distribution of documents, the stamping of forms, and the disposal of sensitive waste. He wasn't a scientist or a strategist. He was the person who ensured the office ran smoothly, the person who saw the top secret stamps every day until they lost their meaning. To Robert, these weren't state secrets. They were just pieces of paper that stood between him and the end of his shift. But he soon realized that these pieces of paper were worth a fortune to the right people. Lipka's journey into treason didn't start with a secret meeting in a dark alley. It started with a simple, desperate need for cash. He was young, married, and living on a soldier's meager salary that couldn't keep up with his expenses. One afternoon in 1965, he walked into the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. He didn't have a manifesto. He didn't have a political grievance. He simply told the officials there that he worked at the NSA and asked how much they would pay for what he could carry out. It was a transaction as cold and businesslike as buying a used car. For the next 2 years, the fortress of silence was leaking from the bottom up. Lipka's method was terrifyingly simple. In an age before digital tracking, he relied on the invisibility of the unimportant. He would take highly classified reports, documents detailing troop movements, cryptographic breakthroughs, and diplomatic intercepts, and simply hide them in his clothes or toss them into trash bags that he was authorized to carry out of the building. He would then drive to prearranged dead drops in local parks, leaving the secrets of American security behind a loose stone or under a park bench in exchange for envelopes of cash. The KGB were delighted. They gave him a code name, Dan. To them, he was a gold mine. He was providing the kind of raw intelligence that allowed Moscow to see behind the curtain of American intentions. And yet, for all the damage he was doing, Robert remained utterly unremarkable. He didn't buy Ferraris or live a playboy lifestyle. He used the money to pay off his credit cards, buy groceries, and sustain a quiet, lower-middle-class life. He was a professional ghost, a man who betrayed his country not for a cause, but to balance his checkbook. In 1967, Robert left the Army and the NSA. He walked away from the world of shadows and moved to Pennsylvania. For nearly 30 years, he lived a life of complete anonymity. He likely thought he had gotten away with it. The Cold War ended, the Berlin Wall fell, and the Soviet Union itself vanished into history. The end began not with a knock on the door, but with the opening of an archive. After the collapse of the USSR, the Mitrokhin archive revealed the existence of an agent codenamed Dan who had worked at the NSA in the 60s. An undercover FBI agent, posing as a Russian intelligence officer, contacted Robert, claiming that the center wanted to reconnect and pay him the money he was still owed for his service decades ago. In 1996, 30 years after his last dead drop, Robert was finally arrested. His neighbors were stunned. They couldn't reconcile the quiet man they knew with the traitor who had sold out the nation's most guarded secrets.